Well, good morning. How are you doing? My name is Will Saburu. You can call me the Wild Wild Willis, but in the mornings, I'm just Willis Saburu. Thank you so much for making time for Daybreak. It is Tuesday, and when it's Tuesday, we like to talk about things that you are going through, things you suggest, things that we feel can help further along the discourse, or at least start it in case you are shy about talking about it. We start the topic now, then throughout the day, you can, get it, or you can watch back on YouTube, or abuse us later on social media. Whatever works, really. So long as what one okay. It's good, it's good, it's good. I don't do this alone. I want to start by introducing CZ Agnes, who's joining us via Skype. Habari ya asubuhi. Uko sawa?
Niko fiti na nyinyi?
Hata sisi tuko salama. The sisi she's referring to is her best friend, Shatterboy.
Yes.
And CJ Atemo as well, who joins us. Karibuni sana. Yes, everybody, it's an interesting topic. I think everybody has gone through this in some way, shape, or form. And I think we'll start by saying, for those of you whose relationships ended, like Sam Gituku ended the previous interview, by saying thank you so much. Thank you so much. Your explanation is not sufficient, so let's end this. That is what we're talking about today. It's called emotional abuse, and we want to put it in context so that you understand. We'll start with you, CJ. What is emotional abuse?
For some reason, I knew you were coming here. Well, that's very broad.
Yes.
Because it has quite a number of facets. But it is anything that puts somebody in a space psychologically that compromises them, their ability to make their decisions, the ability to express themselves as they ought, anything that creates an imbalance between their reality and what the abuse is creating in them. For example, I could say something that would make you doubt who you are. I could say something that would make you have, self-esteem issues. That is emotional abuse. So it generally just compromises the person's psychological space and causes them to operate at lower than they should. Yeah.
The danger of this non-CZ is that unlike physical abuse, which of course we condemn in the strongest terms possible, the danger of emotional or psychological abuse, as CJ says, is that hatuwezi uiona.
Yeah.
Or at least until it is too late. What do you think, in your view, in terms of, and this is going to be a very interesting one, men versus women, who do you think suffers it most?
Oh, wow. I don't think when you look at, because when I was reading about it, when you look at it, I feel like this is very balanced.
Right.
Both gender experience it, but I think women are more keen to realizing that this is happening, because I feel like women, to an extent, especially nowadays, they are woke. You know what I'm saying? But it happens, and it's not just in relationships. We are looking at just maybe a relationship where we're boyfriend, girlfriend, or a partner, wife, husband, but even friendships. There are people who are very, very emotional, abusive in friendships at workplaces. Workplaces are one of the places where you experience emotional abuse, and sometimes it's very hard to live. And also the effects of emotional abuse last longer, I feel like, more than physical abuse, and they take a toll on someone, I feel like, more than emotional abuse, because your self-esteem goes under, your confidence goes under, and once that is taken away from you, then as a person, then you're messed up. So I feel like both genders experience it, but women talk more about it more than men.
Exactly the point we're now shut up on. Women talk more about it than men, but men go through it as well.
True that.
So what is your view on emotional abuse before you go into the nitty-gritty of them, or some of them that CJ has also already highlighted?
I think men go through emotional terrorism.
That's what you're going to call it.
Yes, it's emotional terrorism. You know why? Because you think going through emotional abuse is okay, so it keeps graduating. It graduates to something else, and that is what people have never defined. It's emotional terrorism. You live in terror. You are terrorized all through, but you won't talk about it. But when you kurudi hapo umeniuliza.
Yes, between men and women, you said men go through emotional terrorism, but I mean women also go through it as well.
Yes.
But I think men are quiet about it, maybe?
Men think it's okay to go through it. You think it's part of life. You see, and when I talk to you about it, you say, hiyo ni kitu kidogo. Achana nayo. Unaelewa? But also, it does not say men don't do it. See what men are victims. Actually, I think for women, the beauty about them talking about it is that they prevent it from escalating. You see, for a man, say if this person is emotionally abusive to a lady, yes, and the lady decides, this one is not going to happen to me, and she maybe walks out of a conversation, it is very easy for it to escalate to violence. You see? So also women have their fair share, which is not very good. You get? Therefore, I think the reason as to why they talk about it oftenly and easily, it helps them. It prevents it from graduating to something else. Yeah, man.
All right. I tell you what, that's definitely going to be quite interesting. Yeah. Most of the people do not know that they're being emotionally abused. And I just read some of one of the facets here, and you talked about it already. So there's humiliation, negating, criticizing. Tactics meant to undermine your self-esteem. The abuse is harsh and unrelenting in matters big and small. And then they go on to give some examples here. And this one people normally just throw it aside. For example, name calling. You're stupid, you're a loser. When I'm mjinga, that already is just one of them. And then people always like to let that slide.
Yeah.
And until they even get to say themselves, until you start confessing it yourself. Yeah.
You know, and some people subtly abuse others. They are not active abusers, or they're not out there to intentionally abuse anybody. If you find somebody who's struggling with their self-esteem, they cannot affirm you. They'll struggle with giving you accolades or praise. So probably the easier way, even just jokingly, to praise you is to say something like that. Instead of saying, Willis, you're very good at your job, they'll give a snide remark. You know, the reverse. They'll tell you something like, but you're so useless at that job. According to them, that's a compliment. You understand? And then you begin to accept that as jokes as well, but words have a way of just concretizing that. So even yourself, subtly, you begin to look at yourself as somebody who's not very good enough, because we don't understand the power of those words. So they're those people who are abusive without even knowing, because they themselves, they don't think that they're anything as well. But yes, as Nonsense says, even at workplaces, if you look at there's a certain community, and I do not want to profile, but a certain community that will have people work for them like for 30, 40 years. Part of the reason they stay there is the amount of verbal abuse these guys have received till you don't feel like you can get another job anywhere. This person will have made you, if you leave this place, nobody's going to employ you. So I've done you a favor, you know? And when they say that over and over, it becomes like the elephant in the zoo. You break the wheel by chaining it for so long. The day you remove the chain,
still there.
It's still around there. So the people who do that to you, till you feel like, anyway, where would I leave to go to? Just by subtly putting in those remarks every single day.
But and especially watu wanatafuta kazi kama hii sana. Mbona utawacha hii kazi? Yeah, why? Yeah, who will employ you at your salary? Anyway, so it's good that we also put in context, like you're saying, that it's not just in relationships. I know it happens in relationships, both I think at relationships and at work, people do not really understand that they're going through emotional abuse, because you'll be name called, you'll be told all sort of things. There's also one that's very interesting here. It's that's patronizing. Before we go to gaslighting, which I think is the most famous. Patronizing, I'm saying, nonsense. Anyway, I know you try, but this is just beyond you. Comments like that, like I know you try, but man, it's so beyond you. So, Nonsense, how would you, you know, help somebody? I know you're going to give more examples, but how would you help someone to identify that it's emotional abuse, or as people like to say, I'm in a toxic relationship or a toxic work environment?
I think it starts with self. When you've been emotionally abused, you just feel it that something is not okay. Like, this is not how things are supposed to be. I don't know how to explain it. There's just something in you that feels this is not normal. Sometimes because you'll cry a lot, you feel like you're not worth it. You don't want even to, you know, even you unajiachilia, if I may say. You don't want to look nice because someone's like, so why do you think you're wearing that outfit? Your skirt. Do you look, so you will feel it, you just don't know how to go about it. But when you realize it, or when someone realizes it, or because I could tell you, hey, you know, Willis, you're going through emotional abuse. But until I feel like it's self, because I cannot be able to tell you, because like if it's a workplace, if I tell you, hey, leave your job, you're the only one who knows the situation you're in, how much badly you need that job, how much badly you need that salary. So I feel like sometimes you need to sit down with yourself and weigh. But again, I can say there's nothing worth tampering with your self-esteem. And I really like what I did. For me, it was a moment of wow when CJ said that someone who has a low self-esteem, they can never, you know, tell you what of building you up. And I was like, I think that's why most people are doing emotional abuse, because let me tell you, we grew up also in very emotional abusive homes. Let's all be honest. We'll have a conversation about the relationship that we had. But hey, it takes self. It takes self to decide. It takes self to realize, I'm going through this. I need to make a decision. It's gonna cost me this, but I need to do it anyway.
At what cost? The biggest thing is the cost. What cost? The other thing that people, a facet of emotional abuse that I found was interesting was something that was called control and shame. And you can also go to www.headline.com in case you want more reference on that. Control and shame. And it's very interesting because some of these things, Shata, watu sema, anafanya juu ananipenda. Number one, threats.
Yeah, man.
Telling you, for example, that they'll take the kids and disappear, or wewe usinijaribu wewe. Monitoring your whereabouts. They want to know where you are all the time, insist that you respond to calls or texts immediately. They might also just, by the way, uko wapi, niko hapa job, sawa. Kidogo kidogo, where Willis, unaitwa hapa nje. Just to see if you are where you said you are. Then there is a new one in this age called digital spying.
Yeah, man.
Where they monitor your SMSs, your emails, your texts, your call log, demand for your passwords. We'll talk about that one day. Then financial control and many others. Direct orders, fanya hii. Ama unilateral unamuka unapata walifunga joint account.
Yes.
Walifanya vitu kama hizo. When it comes to control, you know, what do you think inafaa mtu afanye? Because control is very hard. You might think, but si ananipenda. That's why I'm calling to find out where you are, because I love you.
Unaona, ukifika your point ati si ananipenda, you are a victim
already.
You are already in it. Yani wewe unahitaji kusaidiwa, because you see, when this person now has already tampered with your self-esteem, that you think you deserve what you're getting. You think, anafaa kunimonitor. Si mama watoto wangu. Anafaa kujua pin yangu, anafaa kujua pali niko, anafaa kuspy on my phone. You start making excuses for this person, for their bad behavior. It's like, you see, when you fall in love with a person that has captured you. That is the situation. Itakuwa Stockholm syndrome. Sa ile una feel huyu mtu anakufanyia vitu mbaya, but wewe mwenyewe unampatia excuses. Unajiambia it is okay. Anafaa kujua password yangu, anafaa kujua nini yangu. Sasa hapo uko kwa shida already. You know? Kitu umesema, how do you identify that? Sasa yenyewe mimi am being emotionally abused. Si ndio? Number one, how do you feel ukiongea na mtu? Mkimaliza conversation zenyu unabaki ukifeel aje? Unaona hiyo kitu ya you do everything but it is never enough. They will keep demanding for
you
more.
Do everything for them, but the same is not done for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And they will never appreciate. For example, unaweza ndo fanya shopping, sema tu maybe ni nyumbani, ukirudi hivi na shopping, after wamepakua kila kitu wakwambia umesahau sabuni. They won't even say thank you first for this shopping. Wakwambia umesahau sabuni. Yani hata ufanye nini, there are
some details around
you've not
studio.
done. There is,
it seems kitu inaguza watu wengi. Yes.
Kuna hiyo part ya hautawahi waridhisha. And it is upon you to realize it is not your problem. It is their problem. Ni hao wamechuza watu wairithika. And you know, when these people are doing these things to you, they know. It is a defense mechanism of keeping you. You know, when hata vile tumesema kazi, unashindanga umebitiwa down ukiambiwa ukitoka hapo uzipata kazi pale pengine. What they want to do is control your imagination. Because once they control your imagination, they control your reality. Okay? So, mtu anashindaje kuonesha, without me you're nothing. And you start believing it, and you start living like that, you know. So hata ukipitia hizi vitu zote, alafu something else inafaa kuanzia pia kwa watoi. You see, if a child grew up in an abusive family emotionally, this child will accept emotional abuse when they grow up. They will think it's the norm. Unaelewa? So this is something that starts from way back, from toi. If you grew up hata ukiona baba yako akiwa emotionally abused, but he never spoke about it, he made it look like okay. When it is your time, you will also think it is okay. I saw it happening with dad or mom. Unaget? So ni kitu in roots zake ziko deep sana. Yeah, man.
It is deep. So how do you get...
You know,
Sorry,
when this whole thing is described, I saw a tweet yesterday of somebody said, you know, this whole country, because of the issues of the loans that the government keeps on taking, he said this whole country just needs to be yellow taped. You know, it's an entire crime scene. And when you look at all these things you're talking about, then all relationships are abusive.
They should be yellow taped.
Because it's like everything is nearly abuse, and I think that's where now we've got to go on the flip side as well, so that again we don't create people who are manipulative. That if they do something wrong or if they're not accountable or something, then you try to have accountability. They say you're trying to control me.
I think that's what's called gaslighting, where they kind of...
They want to make you doubt
your reality,
yourself and your reality and your truth, you know. So you may just genuinely be asking something. Why are you coming home late? Then to them, you see, you want to control me. This is emotional abuse. I cannot stay in a relationship like this. This is toxic.
Yes.
So it's like, yes, you relate, but I do what I want, whenever I want, however I want it, and don't ask me anything, because if you ask, you're being abusive.
Yes.
There are people who are very manipulative as well, like that. Some people, again, as we say, if you grew up, you know, if you grew up either very abused, or even if you probably lost, it's very prevalent with people who lost both of their parents when they're very young. Sometimes it's very difficult to handle them because they did not have that parental love around them, and sometimes they feel that they need to defend themselves and they feel everything is being done against them because they are orphans. So sometimes you'll be correcting and doing something and they feel like, you know, if my mom or my dad was here, this would not be happening to me. So again, we've got to look at the flip side, so that people don't just keep raising placards like I'm in an abusive relationship and sometimes they're not taking responsibility for their actions.
So how do you know then, like the difference? Because
the difference is the intention.
Okay.
It's the intention. You see what Shatta said, when somebody wants your password, what's the motive? Is it control? Is it the two of you agreed to be open with one another? Because some people will say, we need to have, you know, each other's passwords. They have agreed over there, both of them, willingly, consciously, without any pressure, in soundness of mind. But then you have somebody else who wants to sneak into your phone or snoop around your stuff.
Anangoja wakati umelewa. Ndo nakuuliza password zako na gani?
So when somebody's intention is to have an upper hand over you, then that's emotional abuse. If their intention is to have an upper hand, it's abuse.
The intention is to have an upper hand. All right. So others, which again, it's going to be very interesting to see how this works, because there's also described here accusing, blaming, and denial, which you've also kind of brought up here. Using guilt, for example, that I want this, you owe me this, look at all I've done for you. Yeah. Then there's denying the abuse. When you complain about the attacks, abusers will deny it, and then they'll be shocked. Like, oh my, hapana, mimi nilifanya hivyo. There's that element of shock as well, which brings me to the next point. Nonsense, how do you think you can bring up such a, discussion with somebody, whether it's at work or whether it's with your significant other, when you feel that umekuwa ukinifinyilia sana and I have some concerns? How do you think is a safe way to bring it up?
Every time we have a conversation, I realize that bottom line, everything is affected by communication. Like communication is key to everything. How you say things could affect how people interpret them and all that. But that has been said, because all of us cannot go for communication classes, and communication is not as easy. I don't know. Is there a way of saying, like workplaces, you really, I don't know if there's a HR system, you can be able to raise that. But sometimes workplaces are too toxic, and you just realize the best option would be to leave. But how about a relationship where you've invested and you can't just wake up one Kenyan morning and decide I am done, unless it's really, really bad? And also, does the other person realize that they're being emotionally abusive? Because that's another thing that I'm not sure whether CJ or Shatta said, because sometimes we don't even realize that we are being emotionally abusive. Like even when I was reading, I saw that yelling when you're angry is a way of just being emotionally abusive. So at that point, I was like, what do I do with my anger? Like when I'm angry, what do I do at that heat of the moment? And again, I'm supposed to react. I'm a human being. So I don't know. CJ is the expert to this. We might just throw the question.
One time.
CJ.
I don't know when I shared this one time. There's one day, I think I was just frustrated. Not too long ago, I think there was just a lot that was going on. So my sons, I had an agreement with them on their study time. I felt that they were beginning to go very lax on that. So I had this agreement with them on their study time. You're going to have your schedule, and so that you study at certain times, then you can go out and do your stuff. And so this particular day, they've gone out like about 3 days or something in a row, and they're not doing that stuff. And I think there was quite something that was building up. So I came in and I really, spoke at a tone.
Okay.
At an adjusted tone,
Adjusted tone.
It's an adjusted tone. And I spoke and I spoke and I said a lot of stuff. So 3 days later, and somehow after I spoke all of that, I felt relief. That's one bad thing that sometimes we do. When they were younger, my wife would tell me, if you have to punish kids with a cane, don't beat them till you feel okay. You have to determine.
Well, I'd say that one is a lesson many people need to learn.
You have to agree, because you've done this, I'll cane you 3 times, and when you get to the 3, you stop.
See, no, normally inakwanga 1, 2, alafu nikupate umerudia.
Kiboko inavunjika inaisha.
Unaikutanisha hivi.
So it's like I spoke to find relief.
Right.
3 days later, my wife comes to me and say, the boys complained about how you spoke to them. Number one, I couldn't believe my sons reported me. And then, even how they put it, they asked, is that okay? Can you believe it, Willis? My son's doubting my sanity. Is that okay? Then they started saying the things that I said. So I was caught up over there. The bit of me that is the African man, I don't know whether to go and apologize.
Yes.
So sometimes, as nonsense say, sometimes you feel like, I need to let out this because I want this person to get to know the point. But then how that person receives it feels like it's abusive to them.
Yeah. So you must kind of get a An interesting balance.
An equilibrium.
Yeah.
But still, is it they feel or is it? Do they feel it's abusive to them or is it abusive to them?
Well, it's somewhere there. Because you see the intent, yes it is. Yes it is. And I think the reason
Yes, it is
why...
what, abusive to them?
It is abusive to them at that particular point. But again, what I said in the beginning, that sometimes you're abusive without knowing that you're abusive. Like Nonsense will say, you know, you want to let out, and you think this is how I need to do it. And probably the communication should have been different. And maybe I was feeling like, look, I've communicated this several times. So there's also the frustration that is coming in. Now, those are kids. If they were adults, I would expect for them to also then look at the track record. Is this how this person communicates every day? If this is not how they communicate every day, they were not trying to be abusive. They must probably just be going through something. Because again, sometimes we form opinions of people over just one thing. Something triggered them. Maybe you have pressure from work. Then you get home. Then you want to say, why are you serving me cold food? You get. And then this person will be like, he never likes my food. And that may not be the case. They just also need to be very, sensitive to the fact that this is not how Willis normally talks. This is not how Shatta normally behaves. So there must be something as well. Yeah.
Something you've asked, how do you start these conversations? Probably. Like, how do you now tell this person, I think you're abusive? Number one, hata ukienda kuanza hii conversation, you need to know that you can never change these people. A person that has decided to be abusive to you.
A narcissist, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. That is their nature. That is who they are. And I can never change you. Change has to come from within. You have to decide. Now, what you need to know is that this is your person. Probably this is your husband, this is your wife. You know how they are. You know their communication. Now, I would suggest before you go starting the conversation with this person, have this conversation somewhere else with a confidant, someone you know want to go now parading your issues out there. Because you see, the moment you speak these issues, you get a different perspective on how to handle it. Because if you've just bottled it and you go start the conversation with the person, they will go defensive automatically.
And sometimes, before you continue, sometimes it's important to talk to somebody just so that you confirm to yourself that you're not crazy.
I am not being paranoid.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Because part of the self being put down so much with no low self-esteem makes you doubt yourself. So ukiongea na watu wawili watatu upate watu wanafanya hivi kwa story yako nasema
kumbe sio mimi. Yeah. You get. So once you speak to someone else, now when you go face the person that you think is abusing you, you will have an objective. You will have this angle that you will take. Because if you go without talking to someone and start talking, then they repulse or now get confrontative, you will burst. Your emotions will burst, because if it has gotten you to a point where you need to talk, it means umeifinyilia sana. It's under pressure. It's high pressure. So when you talk and they return the words, you will burst. And in that bursting, you will start arguing. And once you start arguing, they are winning. Because you are in their game now. That is what they want. So you need to go, first of all, ease the pressure, talk to someone, and understand, then come sit to this person, tell them, the will is this and this and this happens. And if you do it a couple times and now you realize this one enyewe ameamua hata why change, now you need to think of an exit plan, no matter what you've invested in it, because these things graduate. We say the only constant thing in life is time, but any other thing graduates to something else. It will move from emotional abuse to physical abuse, because that is the nature of it. It keeps evolving. You need to know that, and anyone going through it right now needs to know that abuse will evolve to something else. Handle it early. If it cannot be resolved, get an exit plan.
All right, that's quite interesting.
I remember a case,
yes,
Willis, very similar to me and my sons. One famous musician in the U.S. was taped by his son when they were having an exchange.
Sir Kirk Franklin.
And we've got to talk also about the reverse abuse, because he said his son was always manipulating him, like, he needed things from him and blackmailing him. And so when he bursts, the son has recorded this, knowing that my father is famous. You know, the son has nothing to lose. So everybody.
And then we only got that side.
Yeah, so you only get that side. And everybody will be feeling like, but he's the adult. He needs to know what to do. Nobody's looking at the whole provocation process that gets this person to the place where they burst as well.
Yeah.
There are also very people who are very clever at that. They know if I keep touching this, I know Shatter. I know Shatter. He'll get here. Then I'll get him to do that thing. Then I say, you see, he's a very abusive guy. But we never talk about the triggers.
The triggers,
The
yeah.
buttons
The
you
triggers.
keep pressing.
Yeah, the triggers. So there's something interesting here, and I don't know, since it's big on communication, and I'll ask you this, then I'll also ask CJ. So Shatter has said that if you see that it is not working, you must start to formulate an exit plan. So what do you do when the communication doesn't work, per se?
Plan, exit.
You didn't even think about that for 1 second. Right.
And you know, some of these stories you can't share them, but I've seen the effect of emotional abuse to people who are very close to me, and I would not wish that on anyone. People who cannot even take a photo because their self-confidence is very eroded. You know, they don't believe no matter what you do to them, they don't believe they even deserve the nice things. They don't believe that they look good in that dress because of what has been constantly fed in their minds for years. It will affect you, it will affect how you relate with people. So, my friend, as long as your legs can carry you, create an exit plan, you know, because it's not worth it. It's not. It's not. And especially workplaces. I've experienced emotional abuse at workplaces, and it takes a lot to recover. It takes a lot. You know, you wake up one morning and ask yourself, do I even know how, you know, am I good at doing this job? You know, am I, because it's constant. And you know, sometimes it comes as criticism, but also how we criticize really, really matters. Like Shatter said, you go and you do everything, you buy everything, but you've forgotten the soap. So you will do everything, but that's one thing that you didn't do. That's when you become stupid. That's when you can't be able to deliver. So the impacts are not, and you see, some of us are able to rise, but it's not the same to everyone. You might never recover from that. So when you need to move, create and especially, and if it's a narcissist, don't tell them you're going, don't tell them you're leaving, because the drama will continue. Like plan, it's, how do I put, it's an exit plan, pole.
It seems like people are doing a lot of scheming when it comes to leaving, but there are also some interesting things here that people should know even as we continue to, as we go towards ending. It says your trauma isn't your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. There are two things. Kuna wale watu wanyasemanga, enye mimi, kwa sababu, you know, like CJ was saying, some people use it as a manipulation tactic. They don't want to change because we've said it or they've heard it over and over again that the way you're raised is going to affect the way you treat other people. So if you're trying to tell somebody, I think you're abusive in this way, they say, yes, well, Mimi, that's how I grew up, so I can't change, right? So they don't take that. And then the other tactic of control is that since you're already a narcissist would isolate you from your friends and family, or an abuser would isolate you from your friends and family. So hata una mtu wa kuongelesha ya kusema, by the way, is this and this and this, ABCD. So look out for such and keep talking. CJ, nobody wants to end anything, right? Yeah. So when people, it's interesting to say, like since it's saying start and exit strategy, don't tell them that you're leaving. What are the options? Because you don't want to say that the only option is exit.
Is
what
exit.
are the options there?
She talked about communication. When communication is not working, you probably then end up in a meltdown. And when you get into a meltdown, you disengage. Exit is the last of the options that you have. The times you can disengage and allow each other to have introspection or have a third party come in and intervene. See whether these are matters that can be worked out. Sometimes the other person does not really know that what they're doing is affecting you in the way that it is affecting you. sometimes they're genuinely lost about it. They don't know. And unlike Shatter, who says people don't change, I'm a believer that people change.
When they show you they are, you trust.
You believe them.
You trust.
I'm a believer that people do change.
Some people.
People do change. People do change. Some people don't change. People do change. I mean, you're not the same person you were a few years ago, you know, including Shatter himself. So there are people, if they get to understand what has been happening or what they have been projecting on other people, they may want to work it out. But then again, that has got to be given time. It cannot just be, we talked today, so I've realized that I've been abusing you, I'm willing to change, so tomorrow we reconnect. It may not work because there's the default setting. This person has to probably go through somebody talking to them. Either they need therapy or they need a mentor. They need to have various conversations. How did this make you feel? How did this make you? Why did you do this? Why was I doing this? They need to also check themselves and find out, why are they acting and speaking in the way that they are doing? Now, if you're willing to give that, time, that process, then maybe after you can get back together, redefine the rules, set different rules, ground rules for how you will engage, whether it is a marriage or a friendship or at work, then you move on. If that cannot work, then eventually, you know, the both of you will know this thing is not working. So we just need to let it be.
Okay.
And teacher,
Clarification. People change. But I said you cannot change people. I said change has to come from within. They have to decide to change for them to change. You can't change me unless I decide to change. I'll remain who I am. You get?
Right.
That's what I meant. Now, in talking, if before you go to the last stage of exiting, then it means to anyone that is listening or watching, you need to start talking as soon as you realize this is happening. Do not bottle this thing. Don't let it grow, because if you keep it and you let it grow for some time, the day you talk about it, they will think, the person that is abusing you will think you're getting influenced from outside, because you have shown them it is okay for them to abuse you. So the day you feel this is enough, now I need to talk about it, they will not believe you. They will think someone else, oh, marafiki zako wameanza kukuchocha, you know? Because sasa umeacha ikagrow ikafika ile point. Allow something else. When they are abusing you and you start talking and they refuse to change, now they know you are going to leave them. They know. And what they do is now they start, because they know, up here wako na exit plan yao. They will ruin your name around the world. Around the world. And they will ruin your name anywhere you go. People will never believe you. You see? They say a lie will go what? 1,000 miles before the truth takes a first step or ties its shoes to start going. They will go out there, they will tarnish your image. Before you exit, people will think you the bad one. You are a victim and you will still be victimized outside. Wewe kwenda, suliacha wife, suliacha hazi, kwani hatujui ni oli mtoka. But in reality, you are a victim. But they also made their plans of making sure tukiachana wewe, people will think you are the bad one. Unaelewa? So if you think this person that you off because you love this person and you started this relationship, talk about it immediately you see it. If you think this is wrong, tell them, by the way, ukiongea hivi, nilikwambia the first sign ya kujua tu ni when I talk to you, nikiamka niende, how do I feel? Do I feel low or do I feel uplifted? If every time I talk to you natokanga nikifeel because every time we talk about your success. Nimefanya hii, nimepromotiwa. You will never talk about me. You will never listen to my issues. I live, nimeongea na wewe, I feel depressed. You need to know you're being abused and address it at that moment. Don't let it grow, because the day you'll want to change it after you've shown them that is the way to deal with you, they won't believe you and they won't change.
And they won't change. All right, we have a few, some seconds to wrap it up. Nonsense, we'll start with you. What would be your closing remarks on the same?
I would really back up Shatter on this one. But Shatter, you know I really back you up. But this time I can't. Communicate as soon as you realize that something is not okay, because as soon as you keep things piling, the day you will blow up, then it will be what Shatta called terrorism. It will be bad. But as much as we say communicating is the hardest thing that people can ever do. It's not as easy as we say, because you don't know, sometimes you don't know about how people will take it, but try as much as possible. Even when we say when your voice is trembling, just try as much as possible to say, hey, I think this is going on and I don't feel like the direction is right. And if you continue like this, then it's going to be bad. The sooner you handle it, the better, because as it progresses, then it will be dire. So when you realize something is happening, and also let's inform ourselves, let's learn, let's not be just sitting there and saying, okay, this is emotional abuse, but someone is just in real sense caring, asking where you are, not just because of anything, but surely just to know about your safety. So talk about it as soon as possible. And also let's be kind to one another. It's been dire. Some of us growing up, it was just a mess. So let's be kind. Let's understand where people are coming from, but also let's communicate. It's kindness.
With kindness, CJ.
Well, that communication aspect, whereas as Nonsense says, is not very easy for many people. Some people were never allowed to express themselves, no matter what they were going through. And they easily find silence to be the place that they go into when they have issues. So there's also a lot of silent treatment as well. Some people silence because that's how they protect themselves. Some people silence because that's how they show that they're not happy with something. It will take both sides for that communication thing to work. Because if you expect, for example, just a victim who already is broken, shattered, beaten, low, nearly sick, to be the one to gather the strength again to come and say something is wrong, they may not know how to do that. They may have developed their coping mechanism, which is either silence or absence. And the people around them must also now begin to learn, like, something is not right with this person. For example, when you talk about emotional abuse in children, or just whatever kind of abuse, even in children, you may not expect them to come out and talk sometimes. I think we need to be sensitive to the people around us. Like when we see a change, when we see this person is not okay, we also need to open the door for them to communicate. And then some people will not be very confident in having face-to-face communications. If somebody, for example, will come to Shatta and say, this is what Willis has done to me, and I would like to talk to him, can you talk to him on my behalf? You shouldn't get upset and say, so why didn't you go to Shatta? That person was just trying to reach you because they've not developed communication mechanisms to face you directly. We have to generally look at motives, intentions, spaces that people are in, and why they feel the way they feel. Yeah.
All right, well, I tell you what, emotional abuse is quite something, like we said in the beginning, because the thing about it is you can't see it. Well, you can see it in the after effects, when you can notice somebody's self-esteem, demeanor, silence, etc. But generally, it's not something that can easily be spotted. So my advice as well, as much as we've started the conversation, we've talked about some of the facets, but it's such a broad topic and so many things that you can look out for. As you are out on social media, doing everything that you are, take some time and Google it. What is emotional abuse? What are the signs of emotional abuse? How to deal with emotional abuse? Start there. If you tick at least 3 of the boxes, you need to get some help, because sometimes when I talk about it, you might not even know that you're going through it, but if you read about it, you can find yourself in some of those articles. Like I said, headline.com is a good one, and there are many other places online where you can get some information on the same. And of course, you can always reach out to CJ. But as much as you can, try to talk to somebody. I know sometimes it's hard. You might be in a place where you're closed off from people. You don't have access to your family or your friends, or you've not developed a relationship with them over time. But it is important for you to reach out and talk to somebody who will understand and who will help you to get over this. Like I said, emotional abuse, mental health is very important. There are toll-free numbers these days online. Look for the information you need, reach out to somebody, talk, don't suffer alone. Already, we are yellow taped as a country, as CJ said. Already there's so much going on in terms of COVID, so many things that are going on. So don't add on that in being an abusive relationship. Sindio, Mungu wabariki sana. Success na Devi yuko. I was going to say my quote, but Daudi the Great is somewhere up there controlling the sound, so he won't allow me to speak. So peace and love. You know the best team in the world.